Okay, so our stem's been sitting for about an hour and a half, so we're going to have a bit of a check of that now. You can see the stumble of the pipe that we got waiting is the cotton wool starting to colour a little bit brown as it draws the tar out of the bowl and out of the reservoir, but we're just going to put that aside for now. And I'm going to check on the condition of the stem. So you can see the water's turned pretty murky brown. It's a good sign. And looks like the stem's just about done. It's still pretty brown, but most of the bad crud is turning pretty soft, and the easy way to check that is just take your thumbnail and run it along the pipe. And if you can easily take off the brown, then you're pretty much good to go. And yeah, it's soft enough that we can definitely start working on it now. You can take all the crud off pretty easy. So, ditch this water, we don't need that anymore. And we're just going to fill that up with some nice clean water. And this is where you're going to do the real hard work on your stem. This is where you're going to make most of the differences at this very early stage. And we're going to go with some wet and dry sandpaper. I really, with a stem like this with only light tooth chatter on it, it's not too bad. We're mainly just trying to remove the rest of the oxidation. I generally will only use either 1500 or 800 grit paper at the most. And I generally will start with the finest grit that I can, and if that's not working, then I'll go down the grits. As I mentioned earlier, we want to keep as much of that original material as we can on the stem, so just really lightly start working away at it. And you can see when you're rubbing and you get, I don't know if it's coming out well, but if you get this orange color coming off, that means you're removing oxidation. That's what we're after. If you've got like sort of gray stuff coming off, then you're just sanding away good vulcanite. So we don't want to do that. We just want to work really lightly, let the sandpaper do the work, don't push hard. Just keep it moving so we don't get any flat spots. Keep giving it a good rinse. And it should come up reasonably quickly. For this, you really need good light is the main thing. If you can't tell what you have and haven't done, it's just about impossible to do a good job. If it's really nasty, you can use a heavier grit sandpaper, but then you're going to have to work your way back up through the grades and you're going to lose more material. So the main thing to watch out for here is that it's really tough to tell, well, the stem is wet, exactly what you have done well and what you haven't. It can look pretty shiny and black when it's wet, and then once it dries, you'll see heaps of areas that you've missed. So when you think you've done a bit okay, just give it a dry and you'll get a more realistic look of what the pipe's like. And that's coming up really well. It's coming up really easy, and that faint chatter is disappearing really quick. And the main thing that you want to watch is that like high traffic areas that you're going to cross over, like here, you're going to cross over that when you're working up here a bit, you're going to cross over when you're working down there a bit. So just be aware that you don't want to be re-sanding areas too much if you don't have to. I generally sand all in one direction, and you just want to watch out for the little crevices like in and around the bit are the main parts that you really want to just make sure you get right. Anything that you don't do perfectly at this stage, you're going to have to go back and fix up later. Like you'll get to the point where you think you're finished and you'll wax the pipe and you'll see the little defects that you've left that aren't perfect. And you have to go right back through, re-strip all the polish, all the wax back off, and go back down to lower grits again, and then sand your way back up. So Really, this is where you need to pay attention. Like I said, have good light, stop frequently, change your dirty water for clean water, and just really focus on what you're doing and try and do the best job you can. So I'm going to continue to work on this for a little while, and I'll check back in with you later. By the time we finish this stage, we should end up, because I'm using 1500 grit, we should end up with a fairly sort of satin black finish on this, is what we're aiming for. If you're going back, if you've got a really bad stem, you're going down to 600 or even a 480 grit sandpaper, you're going to be aiming for a matte black finish. So yeah, I'll check in with you shortly once I've taken care of the bulk of this, and we'll see what we go to next. Okay, so we've more or less finished cleaning up the exterior of the stem now. The lighting's not so great in here at the moment because the day's wearing on, but I suppose it took me about 20 minutes or so. I did actually go back and hit a few little areas with 800 grit, and then smooth those off back with a 1500 grit after that. But I think as far as oxidation goes and the tooth chatter, as I said, you can't really tell till you've given it a dry off, but it looks pretty good. We're sort of back to a satin, sort of a black finish, which is where we're sort of aiming to be. Now there will always be bits that I personally anyway will miss a little bit here or there that I won't notice now, and I won't it'll just appear to me later on. I can already see there's a bit here that I've hit with 800 grit that I still need to go over with 15, but in aid of that, well, part aid and part acceptance of that, whoops, I like to chuck this step in now, because that gives the time for the pipe to dry a little more and me to pick out any of those little flaws that I may have left there. So I take some more of the isopropyl alcohol to a little shot glass there, and these little shank brushes are gold. They're amazing. I mean, I use the rough pipe cleaners as well, with the little plasticky bits on them, and they're really good for badly clogged shanks and stems. But these things here are amazing, and you just take a little bit of alcohol on it, and we're just going to make sure that there's no tars or anything left in that stem. If you get to any like tight bits, because they're kind of corkscrewed, you can just give it a little twist, it'll work their way in more, and they're really just the easiest way I know. And you can see, even though that looked really clean, we got a fair bit of work to do here, just trying to get rid of that. So I'm just going to take a little bit of hot water, use that to wash my brush off. And yeah, there's heaps of gunk in there. And then just keep going back. Alcohol, scrub. Oh, it's still a little tight at the moment to get too vigorous with it, but just going to do our best to get every last little bit of, oh my god, that's disgusting, that grease is coming out the end there, the tar. Every last little bit of goo out of that pipe, and you just, everyone's got their own tolerances for how much they will accept. I won't stop doing this until there's nothing coming out but a clean pipe cleaner. I just hate the thought of someone else's old tar being in there. And this can take a long time, depending on your pipe. Sometimes you get them pipes that are completely blocked, and the only way to do that is just to keep working your way down through, piece at a time. Put some alcohol in there, maybe let it sit and soften, and just keep working at it. Already this one's getting a lot better as far as being clear, getting the little obstructions out, but you can see the grossness is coming out of this pipe. And so I'm probably just going to sit here for the next 20 or 30 minutes. Just keep at this, and once I start getting a cleanish bristle on my shank brush, stem brush, shank brush, whatever you like to call it, then I'll move on to some pipe cleaners for the final clean. So I'll try and stick with this, and I'll check back with you shortly. Okay, so I spent a little while getting that stem nice and cleaned up, getting all the disgusting crap out of there, and to show you the proof, classic pipe cleaner, and it's pure white. So that's absolutely clean inside. As the pipe was pretty dry by the time I'd finished with that, I did pick a couple of little spots that I went back and just hit with a 1500 again. And at this point, you can either move on and carry on with your bowl, let this sit for a while. It doesn't really matter, but just for the sake of cohesiveness in this video, I'm going to go ahead and finish this stem now. Basically what I want to do is, I've got kind of like a satin finish now. All of the oxidation is gone, the teeth chatter is gone, and it's clean on the inside. I want to take that satin finish and take it to a mirror finish. Nothing gives me more satisfaction than getting a stem that ends up looking like glass. I used to use, when I was first doing it, one of these nail boards. And as someone mentioned in a video of mine previously, they're pretty good. And if you're just doing a couple pipes, I'd definitely go for one of these. Just got a couple of grades of really fine grit sandpaper essentially, and then on the back is just a big sort of rubberized buffing pad, and they're not bad at all. But because I've been doing quite a lot, I've purchased some of these micro mesh pads, and they go from grits of 1500 all the way up to 12,000. So it just gives me a lot more flexibility to work with, and they're kind of spongy and they last for ages as well, and I just wet sand with those. So for this one, I'll jump straight up to the 3200 grit, this tan one here. I'll skip the 3600, I'll hit the 4000, and then I'll go 6000, 8000, 12,000, and by the end of that, the stem should be pretty much like glass, and all that will be left to do is to wax it. So back to more sanding yet again, and I'll check in with you very shortly. One last thing, just to reiterate what I was saying before though, and emphasize that if you've got, at this stage, if you've got imperfections in your stem, if you've still got little dips, or you've got oxidation or anything like that, it doesn't matter how much you do from here on in, you're pretty much just polishing it and fine-tuning from here, and you're still going to end up with those same problems in your finished product, and you're not going to be very happy with it. So this is like the home stretch of your stem. So from here on in, you want everything right. So take the time early on. You don't want to have to go back, strip everything off that you've just done and resand that to get something that you're happy with. So just give it that extra check to make sure that you're really happy with the stem before you start going through this buffing and polishing stage. Okay, I'll check in with you shortly. Okay, well, I've gone through and sanded this right to 12,000 grit. As you can see, it's looking pretty good. There's no sign of oxidation or little dents or scratches in it at all. I'm pretty happy with the finish. And the last step before we're done with the stem is just to use some kind of a wax on it. I use Paragon wax from Fine Pipes International. You can find them online, just Google them up. And this stuff, if you don't have a buffing wheel, this is without doubt the best product you can get as far as getting a good finish goes. I've got way too much here. Just take a tiny little bit on your finger, and basically the heat from your finger is enough to melt it onto the pipe. And this works for bowls as well, not just stems. The only exception is if you've got a rusticated pipe, like the one that we're working on now, there's another wax they produce called Halcyon 2, and that is the wax for rusticated pipes, because this tends to turn white in any of the craggy little rustication bits. And so just give this a super light coat. I'll actually go through and do 2 or 3 coatings of this. You just give them, use a minute amount, rub it all over as evenly as you can, set it aside to dry for 5 minutes or so, and then just buff it off with a nice soft clean cloth. And you just want to make sure you don't get any dust stuck underneath the polish at this point. But that's it. I will check in with you again shortly once we move on to the bowl.